As the night settles gently around you, imagine yourself drifting into a quiet space where time begins to slow. The world outside softens at the edges, the last traces of daylight fading like distant memories. You feel the cool hush of evening wrapping itself around your thoughts, guiding them into stillness. Somewhere nearby, a breeze moves lazily through unseen leaves, the kind of soft sound that reminds you how peaceful the world can be when it chooses to rest. It is in this quiet moment, when distractions melt away, that the story truly begins, not with noise or urgency, but with a soft invitation to simply let go and listen. Allow your breathing to settle as you picture sky slowly waking into darkness. With every passing breath, more stars emerge. First one or two, timid and flickering, then dozens more scattered like grains of silver dust. They seem to grow brighter as the world grows quieter, as if the universe itself waits patiently for you to notice it. Above you stretches a vast, endless canvas of night, not empty or cold, but full of ancient whispers and distant fires that burn for longer than any story on Earth. This is the sky that guided travelers, shaped civilizations, and inspired myths older than the oldest kingdoms. And tonight, it becomes a gentle companion, asking nothing of you but your presence. Imagine lying beneath the sky on a soft blanket of warmth, perhaps deep in a quiet valley or on a quiet hill where the world feels impossibly far away. The ground is steady beneath you, anchoring you, supporting you, reminding you that for now, you have nowhere to be but here. The stars above shimmer with slow, steady light, the same glow that humans have watched for thousands of years. They shine patiently, offering the same comfort to you that they once offered to shepherds, sailors, dreamers, and storytellers. Each star seems to hum with a soft, invisible rhythm, like a lullaby that has always existed in the background of the world. As your body relaxes, picture the sky deepening into a rich velvet blue. More stars appear, some clustered together, others wandering alone across the darkness. You might notice that your thoughts begin to drift, gently untangling themselves. The worries of the day loosen their grip and slide away like small pebbles rolling downhill. There is nothing you need to figure out, nothing you need to solve. Just breathe, slowly and comfortably, as the night sky expands above you. It's easy to understand why ancient people looked upward and searched for patterns. The stars have a way of forming shapes without trying to, of inviting imagination without demanding anything in return. Under this quiet sky, you too may begin to see shapes taking form. A curve of stars becomes the shoulder of a hunter. A straight line becomes an arrow. A cluster becomes a crown. Maybe a winding chain of faint lights becomes the tale of a great celestial creature. The human mind has always found companionship in these patterns, weaving stories into their faint outlines. And even now, as you rest beneath them, those same ancient shapes begin to stir in your imagination. Your breathing continues to soften as the stories begin to whisper themselves into your awareness. You are not just lying beneath the sky. You are stepping into a world shared by countless generations before you. A world where stars were teachers, guardians, omens, and memories. A world where people looked upward for comfort during long nights, just as you are doing now. The constellations were more than patterns. They were characters, heroes, guardians, and symbols of hope. Their stories were retold around campfires, whispered to children, sung by poets, and carved into stone. Tonight, those stories open their doors gently for you. With each slow breath, imagine drifting upward just a little, not flying, but floating in a soft, serene way. The air feels lighter around you, the darkness warmer. You sense the presence of the stars not as distant points, but as companions in a vast, tranquil space. They glow softly, never harsh or bright, but calm and steady, as if they too wish to lull you into deeper rest. The night becomes a comforting blanket stretching to the horizon, wrapping you in a sense of timeless peace. In this space, the boundaries between past and present blur, and you are free to wander without effort. Maybe you sense the quiet footsteps of people from long ago, sitting beside you in spirit. A shepherd tracing constellations with the tip of a wooden staff. A sailor navigating by the North Star. A child listening to an elder retell a beloved myth. Their presence is gentle, not distracting, as though they share the same peaceful silence you do. You are connected to them through the same sky, the same stories, the same desire to understand the world. The stars have always belonged to everyone, and tonight they are here for you as well. As you continue to rest, let your mind drift even deeper. Imagine the stars shimmering with a soft pulse, like tiny heartbeats. The more you look at them, the more they seem to breathe with you. Their light becomes soothing, a quiet promise that no matter how many centuries pass, the sky remains a sanctuary for those who need calm. You are safe here. You are supported. You are free to drift into the stories, or simply let them wash over you like warm tides. Somewhere in the distance, a faint trail of stardust curls across the sky, marking the beginning of the journey. You feel no rush, no urgency, only a gentle curiosity guiding you forward. The legends behind the constellations are ready to unfold slowly, like fragile pages of an ancient book. And as the first story begins to stir, you allow your breathing to deepen one last time, settling into a rhythm as old as the stars themselves. Here, under this endless sky, your journey into the myths can begin.
Before civilizations learned to write their histories in stone or ink, they learned to write them in the sky. Long before the world was brightened by lamps, screens, and neon signs, the night was deeper, fuller, and more present than we can easily imagine today. Darkness wasn't something to be feared or avoided. It was a companion, a familiar blanket that lay gently over the world every evening. When night came, it brought with it a quiet that allowed the softest details of life to be heard. Footsteps on packed earth, the wind brushing against dried grasses, the low murmur of a distant river. And above all, it brought the stars, clearer and more numerous than most of us ever see now. To ancient eyes, the sky was not an empty space, it was a living map. Imagine a world where every night is a theater of shimmering lights. No pollution dims them, no bustling city distracts from their presence. Every star can be seen distinctly, even the faint ones that seem like tiny breaths of light exhaled by the universe. People of the ancient world grew up beneath these skies. They spent hours around fires, outside their homes, or traveling under moonlit paths, always with the constellations overhead like silent companions. The stars were familiar, comforting, and constant. And humans, with their deep need for meaning, began to shape stories around them. Why did humans name the stars? Perhaps because naming something makes it feel known. When early people looked up at the vast dark dome above them, they saw patterns forming naturally. The human brain is incredibly skilled at finding shapes, even in randomness. A curve of stars resembled the spine of an animal, a cluster looked like an eye, a long line suggested a spear. These shapes sparked imagination, and imagination led to stories. Not just simple stories, but legends filled with emotions, warnings, and wisdom meant to survive across generations. Picture a group of travelers resting after a long day. They sit together as the firelight flickers, sending sparks drifting upward until they vanish into the darkness. One of them points to the sky and traces a line of stars with their finger. Perhaps they speak of a hunter who chased his prey across the heavens, or a queen whose vanity earned her a place in the sky as a lesson. The younger listeners lean in closer, letting the myth fill their minds. Over time, these nightly retellings become a tradition. Stories grow richer, more detailed, gaining meaning as they pass from mouth to mouth. Eventually, the same stars that watched over the storytellers become vessels for their tales. Stars didn't only entertain, they guided. Early farmers used the stars to know when to plant and when to harvest. When a certain constellation rose before dawn, it signaled the coming of a season. For fishermen, the stars reflected in the sea served as silent guides back to shore. Shepherds used the rising of bright stars to predict weather changes. And nomadic tribes crossing wide deserts looked to the sky to keep their bearings. When you navigate by the heavens every night, you begin to recognize the stars the way you recognize familiar faces. Different regions created different stories, but all were shaped by the landscapes and cultures they emerged from. In icy northern lands, people imagined celestial bears lumbering across the sky. In desert kingdoms, the constellations were seen as gods reclining on the horizon. In island nations surrounded by ocean, stars became a map stretched across the heavens, marking the invisible pathways of wind and water. Though the stories varied, the purpose remained the same. Stars helped people make sense of the vast world around them. Imagine living in a world without clocks, without calendars, without electricity. In such a world, the sky becomes your calendar, your compass, your teacher. When you look up night after night, you notice that stars rise at certain times of the year, disappear for months, and then return again as if completing some ancient ritual. This rhythm becomes intertwined with human life. The return of a constellation can mark a festival, a harvest, or a migration. There is a deep comfort in predictability, and the sky offered that constancy long before written science could explain it. The shapes early people saw weren't always obvious. Some constellations are made of bright, bold stars that practically draw themselves. Others require imagination, memory, and cultural meaning. But to those who lived beneath the night sky, the shapes were unmistakable. These weren't random dots but stories carved into the heavens. To name a constellation was to honor its legend, to anchor its significance so it could be shared, taught, and remembered. Even as ancient civilizations rose and fell, their star stories traveled with them. Traders journeying between distant cities shared myths with one another. Sailors visiting foreign shores compared the constellations of their homelands. Over time, constellations became a bridge between cultures, proof that even people separated by oceans felt the same awe when they looked upward. In some cases, cultures created different myths for the same set of stars. A cluster meant one thing to the Greeks, something entirely different to the Chinese, and something else still to the people of the Pacific Islands. Yet each culture felt a personal connection to the sky, as if it had been painted just for them. The naming of the stars was also a way to pass down knowledge. A story tied to a constellation was easier to remember than abstract information. A hunter's rising could mark the beginning of winter. A celestial river might symbolize the path of the Milky Way. A giant scorpion might serve as a reminder of seasonal dangers. Stories made knowledge memorable and meaningful. Myths served as vessels for wisdom, allowing important lessons to survive for centuries. As you settle deeper into the calm of this moment, imagine yourself as part of a long chain of people who looked up at the stars with wonder. The quiet shepherd on a hillside hundreds of years ago. The sailor navigating dark waters by the North Star. The child listening to an elder's story near a crackling fire. They all felt the same quiet pull of the night sky, the same desire to understand the mysteries above them. And in naming the stars, they found connection to nature, to each other, and to the long stretch of time that links every generation before and after. Tonight, as you rest beneath your own sky, you share that connection. You join the ancient tradition of letting your imagination wander upward, of letting the stories behind the constellations slowly unfold. The stars above you may look still, but they are alive with history, meaning, and myth. And as the night deepens, the reasons humans name the stars become as clear as the constellations themselves. A desire for understanding, a longing for continuity, and a simple love for the quiet, eternal beauty of the sky. In the heart of the ancient Mediterranean world, long before telescopes and star charts were crafted with precision, there were people who lifted their eyes to the heavens and began to weave a tapestry of myth and meaning across the night sky. These early Greek skywatchers lived in a landscape where the sea shimmered beneath the sun by day and the constellations shimmered above them by night. Their world was shaped by rugged mountains, fertile valleys, and sprawling coastlines, but no landscape was more constant or more mysterious than the canopy of stars that stretched over them every evening. The Greeks were storytellers by nature, and the sky became one of their greatest canvases. Imagine sitting on a cool stone terrace in an ancient Greek city, perhaps high above the Aegean Sea. The air is warm, with a gentle breeze carrying the scent of olives and wild herbs. As the sun sinks below the horizon, a faint blue glow spreads across the sky, giving way to the first visible stars. Fishermen return from the sea, their boats bobbing softly as they anchor for the night. Families gather in courtyards. Lamps flicker to life, casting soft pools of amber light on clay walls. But beyond the reach of these lamps, darkness reveals its familiar constellations. To the people of ancient Greece, this nightly unveiling wasn't just a backdrop, It was the living heart of their world's mysteries. These skywatchers saw the heavens as a realm shaped by gods, heroes, and creatures of legend. Every flickering point of light was connected to a story passed down through generations. The constellations were more than clusters of stars, they were reminders of triumphs, tragedies, and lessons that held deep meaning. When the Greeks gazed upward, they weren't simply observing, they were remembering. They recalled stories whispered by elders, lessons taught by philosophers, and myths that explained the forces of nature itself. In an age before scientific astronomy had taken root, the Greeks already showed remarkable curiosity about the stars. Early philosophers like Thales, Anaximander, and Pythagoras began contemplating the structure of the heavens. Some believed the stars were holes in a vast, rotating sphere encircling the earth. Others proposed that celestial bodies moved in perfect harmony, guided by invisible forces or divine order. Yet, alongside these early scientific ideas, mythology flourished. The Greeks never felt the need to choose between story and science. Instead, they allowed both to coexist, weaving reason and imagination into a single worldview. One can picture small gatherings taking place in quiet outdoor spaces as night approached. A teacher might sit with a group of students, pointing to a particular constellation while recounting both the myth behind it and the philosophical questions it inspired. Those students would grow up knowing the stars as both symbols and phenomena, objects of beauty, mystery, and contemplation. Astronomy and mythology were intertwined threads in the fabric of Greek culture. The Greeks believed that the gods often rewarded mortals or punished them by placing them among the stars. This celestial placement preserved their memory eternally, ensuring their actions would never be forgotten. It offered the Greeks a sense of cosmic justice and continuity, where moral lessons and heroic deeds were reflected in the structure of the universe itself. To look at the stars was to witness the consequences of ancient actions, immortalized across the sky. Imagine the nights when travelers or sailors gathered at inns along dusty roads or small harbors. As they shared bread, olives, and wine, they would trade stories about constellations they had seen from different parts of the Greek world. A sailor from the islands might describe how certain stars helped him navigate open seas. A shepherd from the hills might share how he used the rising of familiar constellations to predict the changing seasons. And a wandering storyteller, one of those gifted with the art of voice, might retell a popular myth with such vividness that even those who had heard it dozens of times felt the thrill anew. The Greek relationship with the night sky wasn't merely scientific or mystical, it was personal. Constellations were like old friends whose appearances marked the passing of time. When a familiar constellation rose earlier at night, it signaled seasonal shifts, warmer days ahead, or the approach of harvest. When others faded, it marked the turning of the year. The sky was a calendar, a guide, a storybook, and a link to the divine. As you sink deeper into this reflective calm, imagine what it felt like for the Greeks to watch the stars slowly turn across the sky. There were no clocks ticking nearby, no artificial lights dulling the heavens. The stars moved with a gentle inevitability, a rhythm that echoed the rhythm of human breath. Night after night, year after year, these early skywatchers observed the celestial dance with the same mixture of awe and familiarity. Over time, the Greeks began grouping stars into constellations that resembled characters from their mythology. They drew lines between the stars to form hunters, queens, beasts, and heroes. But more importantly, they assigned stories to these shapes, stories that held meaning for their daily lives. A constellation might symbolize bravery, loyalty, or caution. Another might warn against pride or betrayal. Each night, these lessons shimmered above them, visible to anyone who cared to look upward. In some cities, formal observations of the heavens were conducted. Priests watched the stars to determine the timing of rituals. Farmers relied on stellar cycles to guide planting and harvesting. Mariners studied the sky to navigate the treacherous waters of the Aegean and beyond. Even those who weren't scholars or travelers developed a keen sense of the stars simply by spending countless nights beneath them. The Greek poet Hesiod wrote of star cycles in his agricultural works, tying constellations to practical instructions for everyday life. Philosophers debated the nature of celestial motion, trying to understand the relationship between Earth and the heavens. And all the while, artists carved constellations onto pottery, painted them on walls, and etched them into metal. The stars were everywhere, woven into culture, art, religion, and daily routine. As you imagine these ancient scenes, notice how naturally the Greek fascination with the sky blends with your own quiet attention now. The same constellations they saw are still above you when night falls. The same stories, the same shapes, the same sense of wonder remain untouched by time. The Greeks looked up and felt both small and connected, small in comparison to the vastness of the night, yet connected to something steady and eternal. Tonight, as you listen, you share a moment with those long-ago skywatchers. You breathe beneath the same constellations they once named and admired. You feel the same calm curiosity that guided their thoughts. And as their stories begin to unfold, star by star and myth by myth, you are invited into their world, not as an outsider, but as a fellow traveler beneath the silent, shimmering dome of the night sky. There is a moment in the quiet of the night when the stars seem to rearrange themselves into stories. Among those stories, one of the most familiar and enduring is the tale of Orion, the mighty hunter whose form stretches boldly across the winter sky. To the ancient Greeks, Orion was not just a pattern of stars, he was a character with a life, a legend, and a fate that echoed through generations. As you settle deeper into the calm darkness around you now, imagine those stars beginning to glow a little brighter, outlining the shape of the hunter who has watched over countless nights. Picture a time long ago, when the Greeks first began telling the story of Orion. Their world was one of islands and hillsides, where forests whispered with the sounds of animals and the sea foamed gently against rocky shores. In this world lived a man known above all others for his incredible strength and unmatched skill in hunting. Orion was said to stride across the land with confidence, carrying a bow carved from the wood of ancient trees and a quiver filled with arrows said to never miss their mark. His presence was commanding, and his pride grew with every beast he conquered. But as with many Greek myths, the story of Orion is not simple. It changes depending on who tells it, the region they come from, and the lessons they wish to teach. Some say Orion was the son of Poseidon, god of the sea, which granted him the extraordinary ability to walk across water as though it were solid ground. Others say he was born from the wishes of three gods, created to be the perfect hunter. Yet no matter the version, all agree that Orion carried a boldness that was both impressive and dangerous. Imagine the mighty hunter walking through a quiet forest at dusk, the fading sun casting a warm golden glow through the trees. His footsteps are soft but assured, his eyes sharp as they scan the landscape for movement. Birds rustle in the branches above, and somewhere in the distance a stream murmurs over smooth stones. The forest seems to hold its breath as he passes, as though even the wind recognizes his power. Orion's bow is slung across his back, ready at any moment. His hand rests lightly on the hilt of a blade that has tasted countless battles. This is a man who believes nothing in the world can challenge him. But pride, especially pride in one's own abilities, has a way of drawing the attention of the gods. The Greeks believed that mortals who grew too confident often found themselves the targets of divine correction. And Orion, with his fearless heart and grand boasts, was no exception. One of the most well-known versions of his story begins with a moment of arrogance. Some say Orion claimed he could hunt and kill every creature on Earth. Others say he boasted of being the most skilled hunter alive, greater even than Artemis, the goddess of the hunt herself. Artemis was not one to overlook such claims. She was a goddess who valued skill, discipline, and respect for nature. To hear a mortal, no matter how gifted, speak as though he could surpass her was an insult not easily forgotten. Yet Artemis was also compassionate, and some tales suggest she admired Orion. They hunted together, roamed forests side by side, and shared a bond forged in the quiet language of the hunt. In these versions of the story, the trouble does not come from Artemis but from her brother Apollo, who feared that his sister's closeness with Orion might grow into something deeper. Apollo, protective and proud, sought to put an end to Orion's presence. And so, like many gods in Greek mythology, he turned to trickery. Imagine a calm sea stretching out beneath a warm sun, the light dancing on its surface like scattered jewels. Orion is far from shore, wading or swimming depending on which version you imagine. His figure is a dark shape against the shimmering water. On the shore stands Apollo watching. He calls for Artemis to join him and points to the distant shape, challenging her skill. He tells her that a creature swims in the water, something dangerous, something that needs to be stopped. Without hesitation, Artemis readies her bow. She has never missed a target. She draws the string back, breath steady, focus sharp, and with a soft exhale, lets the arrow fly. The arrow arcs gracefully through the air, slicing across the sunlight, and lands with perfect accuracy. When Orion's body is brought to shore, Artemis understands the cruel deception. The grief that follows is quiet but deep, like the stillness after a storm that has left the world unsettled. And in her sorrow, she pleads with the gods to honor Orion in a way that would keep him from being forgotten. Zeus, moved by his daughter's grief, lifts Orion into the heavens. There, among the stars, he becomes a constellation, forever illuminated against the darkness. But the story of Orion does not end there. To remind both mortals and gods of the hunter's pride, a great scorpion was also placed in the sky, Scorpius, whose sting ended Orion's life in other versions of the myth. The two constellations were set apart so that they would never share the same sky. When Orion rises, Scorpius sets, as though forever chasing each other across the dome of night. This celestial dance became a reminder of the balance between pride and consequence, confidence and humility. Now imagine looking up at the night sky with these stories in mind. The three bright stars that form Orion's belt stand out sharply, easy to find even for those who do not know the constellations well. His shoulders, his knees, and the faint outline of his raised arm become visible the longer you gaze. The hunter stands tall, bow drawn or arm lifted, depending on how you imagine him. He has watched over countless winter nights, guiding travelers and inspiring storytellers for thousands of years. As you visualize Orion overhead, notice how the myth and the constellation blend into one another. The stars offer a silent reflection of the tale, steady, patient, and filled with meaning. The hunter who once strode across forests and seas now strides across the sky, his brilliance softened by distance but no less powerful in presence. Each night he rises, he reminds those who look upward of the stories that shaped the ancient world, stories of courage and skill, of pride and consequence, of friendship and loss. And as you rest in this calm moment, the stars of Orion seem to glow a little more warmly, as though sharing their ancient light with you. His story, carried across centuries, now becomes part of your night as well, guiding your thoughts gently into the quiet spaces where imagination and history meet. Here, beneath the timeless sky, the legend of Orion continues to unfold, peaceful and unhurried, like the slow drift of the constellations themselves. Far across the night sky from the bold figure of Orion, another shape glows quietly in the darkness, a curved arrangement of stars that the ancients saw as the outline of a scorpion. Its tail curls upward in a graceful arc, and its bright heart, marked by the star Antares, pulses with a deep reddish light. This is Scorpius, the celestial counterpart to Orion, forever connected to his story yet destined never to share the sky with him. As you settle into this gentle moment, imagine the stars dimming softly, shifting just enough for the story of the scorpion to rise from the quiet of the night. Long before telescopes revealed the true nature of stars, the Greeks looked upward and saw in Scorpius the embodiment of retribution. The scorpion was not simply a creature. They believed it was a divine agent, summoned to restore balance when pride or power grew too great. In the myths surrounding Orion, the scorpion was often portrayed as the force that brought the mighty hunter to his end. And so, the tale of Scorpius begins with the delicate interplay of fate and consequence. Imagine the ancient world in high summer. The days are long and bright, and the nights carry a heavy warmth. In this season, Scorpius rises prominently in the southern sky, its long curving tail tracing a shimmering path. Farmers would look up from their work and recognize the familiar glow, knowing that the full heat of summer had arrived. But for storytellers, the sight of Scorpius brought to mind the tale of how this humble creature rose to challenge a hunter believed to be untouchable. One version of Orion's myth tells of a boast he made, claiming that no animal on Earth could defeat him. He spoke proudly of his hunting skill, bragging that he could conquer any beast that crossed his path. The Earth goddess Gaia, who nurtured all living creatures, heard his claim and grew troubled. To boast was one thing, but to threaten the balance of nature was another. The animals of the world were part of her creation, and Orion's vow to hunt them all was an affront to the harmony she cherished. And so, Gaia summoned a creature small enough to hide beneath a leaf yet powerful enough to humble the greatest hunter alive, a scorpion. Picture this tiny creature making its way across the warm ground, its shadow stretching long in the afternoon sun. It is not fierce in appearance, not majestic or mighty. It moves quietly, patiently, without fanfare. Yet there is purpose in every step. This humble being carries with it the quiet strength of the earth itself. Some say the scorpion found Orion resting after a long hunt. Others say it confronted him boldly, refusing to be intimidated. In some versions, Orion laughed at the sight of it, so small, so insignificant looking compared to the beast he was used to facing. But when the scorpion struck, its sting was swift and fatal. The mighty hunter fell, undone not by a monstrous creature of legend, but by a being half hidden in the dust. It was a reminder that even the greatest strengths can be humbled by the smallest adversaries when balance has been disrupted. The gods, moved by the events, decided to immortalize the story among the stars. Orion, beloved by many gods and admired by mortals, was placed in the sky to be remembered. But Scorpius, too, was honored for its role in restoring balance. Yet because of their shared history, the two were placed on opposite sides of the heavens. When Orion rises in winter, Scorpius hides beneath the horizon. When Scorpius climbs into the sky in summer, Orion slips away into the west. They are eternal opposites, bound by a story yet forever separated in the celestial dance. Imagine this cosmic chase as though watching a slow, celestial ballet. On one side of the sky, Orion strides forward, confident and shining. On the other, Scorpius curls protectively around its burning red heart. Their seasons never overlap. Their paths never cross. And this separation became one of the ancient Greeks' most elegant explanations for the shifting constellations. It gave the sky a sense of motion, of drama played out across months rather than minutes. Even now, thousands of years later, the story still feels alive when you step outside on a clear night. As you imagine Scorpius rising, notice the unique beauty of this constellation. Unlike many shapes that require imagination to trace, the scorpion is unmistakable. Its tail bends gracefully, a sweeping curve of stars that resembles a celestial hook. Its claws stretch outward, and the star Antares glows at its center like an ember in the darkness. To ancient eyes, this resemblance to a living scorpion made the myth feel even more tangible. Farmers in ancient Greece associated the rising of Scorpius with the height of summer, when the heat was at its most intense. The presence of this fiery red star, Antares, seemed to echo the burning warmth of the season. Sailors used the constellation as a guide, navigating the southern parts of their journeys by its distinctive shape. And poets saw in Scorpius the perfect symbol of quiet yet powerful forces capable of shifting fate itself. Some myths expanded on the scorpion story, suggesting that Gaia placed the creature among the stars so its bravery would never be forgotten. Others said it was Artemis who honored the scorpion, recognizing it as a foe worthy of respect. In all versions, the scorpion is not portrayed as cruel or violent. It is simply fulfilling a role, balancing the arrogance of a hunter who believed himself above nature's order. As you relax into the slow rhythm of the night, imagine the scene of Orion fleeing across the heavens, always just beyond Scorpius's reach. There is no fear in this cosmic pursuit, only the steady reminder that balance governs all things. The hunter rises when the nights grow cold, bringing clarity and brightness to winter skies. The scorpion rises when warmth settles over the land, its curved tail glowing softly in the thick summer air. Together, they divide the year, marking the seasons not with rivalry but with harmony. When you gaze at Scorpius, you are looking at one of the oldest stories written in starlight, a story of pride, consequence, and the gentle but unbreakable balance of nature. The ancients told it not to frighten, but to remind listeners of the simple truth that strength alone does not make one invincible. The smallest beings can shift the grandest destinies. And the heavens themselves reflect that truth. As this thought settles comfortably into your mind, picture the soft summer night wrapping around you. The stars of Scorpius glow warm and steady, their shapes clear against the velvet sky. They feel close, familiar, and timeless. The Scorpion rests peacefully in the heavens now, its role complete, its story woven gently into the fabric of the night. And as you breathe a little deeper, its presence invites you into the same quiet understanding the ancients once felt, that in the vastness of the universe, every shape, every creature, every star has its place and purpose. In the quiet turning of the northern night sky, two shapes have watched over countless generations, steadfast, patient, and never setting below the horizon. Long before maps and compasses, before sailors trusted instruments or scholars studied celestial charts, these constellations served as unchanging guides. Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, the Great Bear and the Little Bear, circle slowly around the North Star, their gentle movement so steady that it became a symbol of constancy in a world full of change. To the ancient Greeks, these constellations were more than just patterns of light. They were reminders of a mother's devotion, a child's fate, and the complex mercy of the gods. To understand their story, imagine the landscapes of ancient Greece, wide valleys filled with wildflowers, dense forests echoing with the calls of hidden animals, and quiet glades where the sunlight fell in soft, dappled patterns. Among these serene places lived a nymph named Callisto, known for her grace and beauty. She was a follower of Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, and accompanied her through forests and mountains. Callisto was dedicated, loyal, and swift, carrying herself with the effortless poise of someone who belonged to the wilderness. But myths rarely remain peaceful for long. The story of Callisto begins gently, with her running alongside Artemis, bow in hand, her laughter echoing lightly through the trees. Yet her life takes a turn when she catches the attention of Zeus. The king of the gods was captivated by her beauty. In many versions of the tale, Zeus disguised himself to approach her, seeking her affection in secret. Callisto, unaware of the deception, later discovered she was with child. Imagine the weight of this revelation in a world where loyalty to Artemis was sacred. Artemis demanded purity from those who followed her. When Callisto's condition became apparent, the consequences were harsh. Some myths say Artemis, feeling betrayed, banished her from the hunt. Others claim Hera, the jealous wife of Zeus, transformed Callisto into a bear out of anger. In either version, Callisto's world changed abruptly and painfully. Picture her transformation, a sudden shift from graceful nymph to lumbering bear. Her hands turning to paws, her voice replaced by low growls, her quick steps replaced by heavy, uncertain ones. Yet within her new form, her human emotions remained. She remembered her past life, her friendships, her home. But now she wandered the woods as a creature others feared. The rustle of leaves that once comforted her now signaled danger. Hunters roamed nearby, unaware that the bear they pursued was once a woman who had walked beside a goddess. Time passed, and Callisto's child, a son named Arcas, grew up unaware of his mother's fate. Raised among humans, he learned the skills of hunting and survival. Imagine him as a young man stepping confidently into the forest one day, bow in hand, unaware that destiny was quietly guiding his steps. As he moved through the trees, a large bear emerged from the underbrush, Callisto. She recognized her son instantly, a rush of maternal longing breaking through her wild instincts. But Arcas saw only a dangerous beast. He raised his bow, ready to defend himself. In that fragile moment, the gods intervened. Zeus, watching from the heavens, could not allow tragedy to complete its cruel circle. With a gesture, he lifted both mother and son into the sky. Callisto became Ursa Major, the Great Bear, and Arcas became Ursa Minor, the Little Bear. Their ascent into the heavens saved them from a fate neither deserved and placed them forever in a peaceful, distant sky where no hunter's arrow could reach them. Now, imagine them appearing above the horizon on a cool, clear night. Ursa Major rises first, its long, sweeping shape unmistakable. Some see a bear, others see a great wagon or a dipper. Its brightest stars form a familiar pattern recognized across countless cultures, a shape so iconic that even children can trace it in the sky. Close by, circling around the North Star, is Ursa Minor, smaller and quieter but deeply important. At its tip glows Polaris, the guiding star that sailors and travelers have trusted for centuries. The story of Callisto and Arcus may be filled with sorrow and transformation, but its place in the sky became a symbol of protection. The Great Bear never sets. It is a circumpolar constellation, always visible above the horizon in northern regions. To ancient people, its presence was comforting. It meant the heavens had stability, even when earthly life felt unpredictable. It meant guidance was always available simply by looking upward. As you imagine these celestial bears now, let your thoughts drift softly with their motion. The stars of Ursa Major move slowly in a circle around the North Star, as though gently pacing the night. Each night, their position shifts slightly, but they never disappear. Their constancy is like a heartbeat in the quiet dark, a steady rhythm that reassures rather than startles. For the Greeks, the placement of Callisto and Arcus in the sky was also a gesture of compassion. Zeus could not undo what had been done, but he could offer a kind of immortality. By lifting them into the heavens, he ensured that their bond would remain unbroken even after transformation and near tragedy. In the sky, mother and son are forever united, their light visible to anyone who pauses long enough to notice. Over time, other cultures added their own layers of meaning to these constellations. In some northern traditions, the Great Bear becomes a wagon carrying ancient gods. In others, the Little Bear becomes a guiding figure leading travelers home. But no matter the mythology, the feeling remains the same. The constellations offer comfort, direction, and a sense of belonging in a vast and quiet universe. Imagine yourself lying beneath the sky, warm and at ease, as the bears circle above you. Their slow, unhurried movement mirrors the gentle rhythm of your breath. The stars shimmer softly, not demanding your attention but welcoming it. You can almost feel the ancient world beneath the same sky, shepherds tending their flocks, sailors navigating open seas, wanderers seeking their way through forests and hills. All of them looked up at these same constellations, drawing comfort from the same steady glow. In this peaceful moment, the story of Callisto and Arcus becomes more than a myth. It becomes a reminder of resilience, of reunion, of the quiet grace that can emerge from hardship. The Great Bear and the Little Bear continue to turn together through the endless nights, their stars glowing softly like lanterns hung in the sky by gentle hands. And as you rest beneath them, you share in the calm that ancient storytellers once felt, a calm shaped by starlight, memory, and the timeless comfort of the night. As the night deepens and the stars slowly reveal their patterns, another story begins to unfold in the quiet sky, one woven with royalty, pride, and the delicate balance between beauty and consequence. High above, poised in a graceful arc, rests the constellation that the ancient Greeks associated with a queen known for her elegance and vanity. Nearby, another group of stars completes the celestial portrait, forming the shape of her husband. Together, Cassiopeia and Cepheus gaze outward from the heavens, their tails forever etched into the fabric of the night. Imagine a kingdom by the sea, its shores washed gently by waves that shimmer under moonlight. The air is warm, carrying the scent of distant jasmine and the faint rustle of palm leaves stirred by evening breezes. This is the land of Ethiopia, not the modern nation, but the mythical kingdom of ancient Greek stories. Here, Cassiopeia ruled beside her husband, King Cepheus. She was renowned for her striking beauty, but even more for her undeniable pride. Her vanity was legendary, spoken about in hushed tones among the people who admired her but also feared what such arrogance might bring. One quiet evening, as the palace glowed with oil lamps and distant musicians played soft notes of lyre and flute, Cassiopeia made a boast that would ripple through the heavens. She claimed that she and her daughter, the lovely Andromeda, were more beautiful than the Nereids, sea nymphs cherished by Poseidon himself. To ordinary ears, such words might have passed without consequence. But to the gods, comparisons were delicate things, capable of stirring powerful emotions. and Poseidon, god of the sea, was not known for his tolerance of insults directed toward those under his protection. Picture the ocean responding to Cassiopeia's boast, waves rising higher, crashing more fiercely against the shore. Fishermen pull their nets hastily from the water and hurry toward land. The sky darkens swiftly as storm clouds gather. The kingdom feels a shift, a heavy tension settling like a stone across the land. This was no ordinary storm brewing. It carried the weight of divine displeasure. Poseidon, enraged by Cassiopeia's words, sent a monstrous creature from the depths of the sea to ravage the coastline. The beast, often imagined as a serpentine form with scales glistening like wet stone, struck fear into the hearts of all who saw it. Villages trembled beneath its approach, and its roar echoed across the cliffs like the growl of an angry storm. The people turned to their king, who turned in desperation to the oracle of Ammon, hoping for guidance. The oracle's answer was devastating. To appease the wrath of the gods, Cepheus and Cassiopeia were told they must sacrifice Andromeda, their own daughter, to the sea monster. Imagine the crushing sorrow that filled their hearts, the echoes of guilt and fear pressing upon them. Cassiopeia, whose pride had sparked the gods' anger, must have felt the weight of her words heavier than any crown she had ever worn. Andromeda was chained to a rock by the sea, her fate seemingly sealed. But myths often turn on moments of grace, and this story was no exception. Perseus, the hero returning from his battle with Medusa, happened upon the scene. With courage and divine gifts at his side, he faced the monstrous creature and defeated it, rescuing Andromeda and restoring hope to the kingdom. Cassiopeia and Cepheus celebrated their daughter's salvation, but their joy did not erase the consequences of past arrogance. The gods, ever mindful of balance, bestowed a final lesson upon the queen. When Cassiopeia was placed among the stars, her constellation was set upon a celestial throne, but the throne turns through the night sky, sometimes appearing upright, other times upside down. To the Greeks, this was symbolic. It reminded them that even beauty and royalty cannot escape the laws of humility. When the constellation dips below the horizon, Cassiopeia appears to be hanging upside down, a gentle yet persistent reminder of the dangers of vanity. Imagine looking up at the night sky now. The stars form a shape like a tilted letter W or M, depending on the time of year. This elegant curve is Cassiopeia, still seated upon her throne, her posture graceful even in inversion. Her stars are bright and easily found, making her one of the most recognizable constellations for stargazers. She seems to shimmer with a quiet dignity, her story softened by time but still present in the glow of her celestial form. Nearby, another constellation completes the royal scene. Cepheus, her husband, is represented by a shape that looks like a house with a pointed roof. Though less bright than Cassiopeia, his proximity to her in the sky reflects their partnership on earth. Cepheus, unlike Cassiopeia, is not remembered for pride or beauty. Instead, he is often portrayed as a ruler caught between loyalty to his people and love for his family. When he was placed among the stars, it was not to punish him but to honor his role in the story. His constellation stands quietly beside hers, watching over the night with steady calm. As you let your mind drift with the gentle rhythm of these constellations, imagine the sky as a vast tapestry where lessons and memories float above you. Cassiopeia's stars arc high overhead in northern latitudes, never dipping completely out of sight. Her movement through the night is slow, soothing, predictable. To ancient travelers and shepherds, her presence was a familiar comfort, a celestial queen who signaled direction and seasons simply by her position. Cassiopeia and Cepheus were not just figures in a story, they were markers of celestial navigation. People learned to locate north by tracing the line from Cassiopeia's stars toward the North Star. In winter, she hangs proudly above the horizon, her shape crisp and clear. In summer, she reclines lower, her throne tilting as though she rests more deeply in the warmth of the season. Her changing orientation became both a guide and a metaphor, gently reminding all who looked upward of the cycles of pride, consequence, and restoration. Now imagine yourself lying beneath that same sky. The stars glow softly, their light traveling unimaginable distances to reach you. Cassiopeia leans across the heavens, her luminous throne gliding slowly from one position to the next. Cepheus hovers close by, steady and unobtrusive. Together, they create a quiet tableau of cosmic royalty, a reminder of stories told long ago, of lessons whispered through generations, and of the subtle beauty that fills the night when the world is ready to listen. As your breathing slows, the constellations seem to move with your breath, rising gently as you inhale, settling peacefully as you exhale. Their presence is comforting, timeless, familiar. They invite you to rest, to let go, to drift gently into the same calm that ancient storytellers once found beneath their glow. And in the quiet of this moment, you share in the vastness of their story, one written across the sky in soft points of starlight. Far across the quiet canvas of the night, where stars faintly shimmer like delicate dust scattered by ancient hands, two constellations rest side by side, one representing a hero whose courage shaped countless legends, and the other symbolizing a princess whose fate once hung by a fragile thread. Perseus and Andromeda, forever linked in myth, drift softly across the heavens, their story retold generation after generation in the gentle glow of starlight. Imagine yourself standing on a quiet shoreline, the waves moving with slow, rhythmic breaths. The moonlight dances across the water in thin silver ribbons, and the air carries a mild, salty coolness. Long ago, in a moment much like this, a hero named Perseus approached a scene that would come to define his destiny. But his journey had begun much earlier, long before he reached this coastline, long before he first saw Andromeda. Perseus was born of unusual circumstances, as many heroes in Greek mythology were. His mother, Danae, had been hidden away by her father, King Acrisius of Argos, who feared a prophecy foretelling that his grandson would one day cause his downfall. But Zeus visited her in a shower of golden light, and Perseus came into the world destined for a life touched by divine influence. Despite attempts to stop him, Perseus survived, growing into a young man brave, clever, and favored by the gods. At the heart of Perseus's legend lies his daring quest to slay Medusa, one of the three Gorgon sisters whose gaze could turn any living being to stone. With the guidance of Athena and Hermes, Perseus embarked on a journey that would take him far from home, across lands and seas few mortals had ever seen. Imagine him wandering through landscapes where mountains pierced the misty sky and soft shadows drifted across ancient forests. Armed with a mirrored shield, a gleaming sword, winged sandals, and a magical satchel, he approached Medusa's lair with the kind of courage that comes only from necessity. You might imagine the cavern as a still, eerie place, the air heavy with silence. Statues of warriors, animals, and stones shaped like reaching hands lined the ground, all former living beings who had met Medusa's gaze. Perseus, careful not to look directly at her, used the reflection in his shield to guide his strike. With a swift motion, he defeated her, placing her head, still potent with its petrifying power, into the enchanted satchel. From this moment forward, he carried not just a fearsome weapon, but a symbol of triumph in the face of terror. It was after this victory that Perseus's path led him to the coastline where Andromeda waited, though waited is too peaceful a word. She was chained to a rock at the edge of the sea, her wrists bound, her gaze fixed on distant waves lit by dawn's first light. Her long hair moved gently in the wind, and her figure appeared hauntingly still against the vast, open horizon. She was a princess of Ethiopia, the daughter of Cassiopeia and Cepheus, and she had become the price demanded by the sea god Poseidon after her mother's boastful claims angered the divine. Imagine her fear, a quiet, trembling kind of fear that settles into the bones when all hope seems lost. Her people had gathered at a distance, unable to intervene, their hearts heavy with grief. They had watched as she was led to the shore and left to face the monstrous sea creature sent to punish their kingdom. The waves had begun to churn as though something ancient and immense stirred beneath the surface. Then, in that fragile moment between despair and fate, Perseus descended from the sky, or so the stories say. His winged sandals fluttered softly, and his figure appeared like a silhouette against the rising sun. When he reached the shore, he gazed upon Andromeda not with pity, but with a quiet determination. He listened to her story, to the sorrow woven into each word, and he felt a stirring within himself, a desire not just to save her, but to restore fairness where cruelty had taken root. As you imagine the scene, let the tension melt gently away, like mist fading under warm sunlight. Perseus stood at the water's edge, his mind calm though the sea roared in anticipation. When the monster surfaced, its scales glistened, each movement sending ripples across the ocean. Perseus took to the air, soaring above the creature, darting between its lashing tail and thrashing jaws. He fought with both skill and grace, every motion precise, every decision shaped by the knowledge that Andromeda's life depended on him. In some versions of the myth, Perseus used Medusa's head to turn the creature to stone, freezing it mid-attack. In others, he battled fiercely with his sword until the beast sank lifeless beneath the waves. Whichever version you picture, the result is the same. Andromeda was saved. The chains that bound her were loosened, and she stepped away from the cold rock, her breath finally steady, her heart no longer heavy with fear. Her parents offered her hand in marriage as a gesture of gratitude and relief. Perseus accepted, not as a reward, but as a natural continuation of the bond formed in that moment of rescue. Together, they returned to her kingdom, where celebrations replaced sorrow, and peace settled gently across the land like a warm blanket after a long night. And when Perseus and Andromeda passed from the mortal world, the gods honored their story by placing them among the stars. In the night sky, Perseus appears as a figure poised in heroic motion, as though still guarding the heavens from unseen threats. Andromeda lies nearby, her constellations stretching delicately across the darkness, her stars forming a graceful pattern that seems to drift like soft threads of light. When you look up at these constellations on a clear night, you may sense the lingering calm of their story. Perseus stands with one arm raised, heroic yet gentle, while Andromeda reclines in quiet elegance. They appear close enough that their stars seem to lean toward each other, a reminder that their destinies were woven together by courage, compassion, and the soft, unfolding ties of myth. As you breathe slowly, imagine their constellations drifting across the sky, moving with comforting steadiness. Their forms shimmer faintly, never rushing, never fading from memory. You are watching the same figures that guided ancient travelers, the same shapes that soothed listeners around distant fires, the same patterns that gave meaning to nights long before your own. Their story, now part of your quiet evening, invites you deeper into the gentle rhythm of history and starlight, where every legend glows softly in the dark. Far across the dark sweep of the heavens, where the stars stretch like quiet memories across the night, there lies a constellation shaped by one of the most enchanting myths in all of Greek storytelling. Pegasus, the winged horse, rises gently from the sky like a creature born not of the earth, but of the very starlight itself. To look upon this constellation is to glimpse a story rooted in wonder, a story that drifts softly between the realms of heroism, poetry, and dream. Imagine, for a moment, a sky untouched by city lights. The air is cool, the world still, and above you the stars gather like shimmering grains of silver. From this peaceful canvas, Pegasus slowly emerges, his great wings forming from distant points of light, his body outlined by the faint glow of ancient stars. The constellation itself does not show the full horse, but rather the shape of a giant square known as the Great Square of Pegasus, with other stars branching outward like ghostly wings lifting into the night. Yet even this partial outline has inspired awe for thousands of years. The story of Pegasus begins not with the heavens, but deep within the realm of myth, in one of the most haunting moments of Greek legend. It begins with Medusa, the Gorgon whose gaze could turn men to stone. Though her appearance was feared, her story is one of tragedy and complexity. When she was slain by the hero Perseus, something extraordinary happened. From the blood that spilled onto the earth, Pegasus sprang forth, fully formed, his wings unfolding like soft clouds breaking apart to reveal bright sky. Some versions say he was born alongside a warrior named Chrysaor, but Pegasus alone carried the ethereal beauty that caught the breath of gods and mortals alike. Imagine the moment of his birth. The ground trembles slightly as he rises, stretching his wings for the first time. The air stirs as feathers, white as moonlit snow, flash against the shadows. There is no fear in his eyes, only a serene awareness, as though he already knows he is destined for the sky. He leaps once, twice, and with a final graceful motion he soars upward, leaving behind the mortal world and ascending into clearer, gentler heights. Pegasus soon became a creature of wonder. He roamed freely across the world, appearing wherever the air was crisp and untouched. Some myths say he visited the Muses, the goddesses of inspiration. Imagine him landing on Mount Helicon, his hooves striking the earth so lightly and yet so powerfully that a sacred spring burst forth from the ground. Hippocrene, the fountain of poetic inspiration. Poets and artists long believed that drinking from this spring would awaken creativity within them, as though Pegasus himself had breathed a little of his magic into the water. In other stories, Pegasus wandered alone, drifting like a cloud between mountains and sea cliffs, always calm, always unhurried. His wings carried him wherever he wished to go, and his presence was said to soften the air, bringing a gentle breeze in even the warmest summer moments. But Pegasus's tale is not complete without the story of a mortal who dared to dream of touching the divine. His name was Bellerophon, a young man of noble heart who longed for glory and heroic deeds. When he heard tales of Pegasus, he felt a stirring of desire, not to own the winged horse, but to join him, to ride upon his back and see the world from the sky. Yet capturing Pegasus was said to be impossible. The horse was swift, elusive, and moved like a feather caught in a breeze. No rope, no trap, no effort of mortal hands could subdue him. Still, Bellerophon tried. Night after night, he waited in quiet fields or beside whispering springs, listening for the beat of powerful wings. He would see Pegasus in the distance, a flash of white gliding across the horizon, but the horse always evaded him. Eventually, worn with frustration, Bellerophon sought guidance from a wise seer. The seer told him that only the favor of a goddess could help him succeed. And so Bellerophon went to Athena's temple, offering his prayers with humility. Imagine the stillness of that sacred night, the temple lit by a faint glow from oil lamps, the air filled with the scent of cool marble and burning incense. As Bellerophon drifted into sleep, Athena appeared to him in a dream, placing a golden bridle in his hands, a bridle that shimmered with divine light, crafted to calm and guide a creature born of magic. When he awoke, the bridle remained in his grasp, warm and real. With this gift, Bellerophon approached Pegasus again. This time, the horse did not flee. Instead, he allowed the youth to draw near, as though recognizing the touch of divine power. Gently, with respect, Bellerophon placed the bridle over Pegasus's head. The horse bowed slightly, accepting him. And with one smooth, powerful leap, Pegasus lifted into the air, carrying Bellerophon upward into a world of wind and sunlight. Their bond grew quickly. Together, they accomplished great deeds, most famously defeating the Chimera, a fire-breathing creature with the body of a lion, the tail of a serpent, and the head of a goat. Riding Pegasus, Bellerophon soared high above the monster, attacking from a vantage point no creature could reach. Victory came not just from strength, but from the harmony between human courage and divine grace. Yet myths often carry warnings wrapped in beauty. In later years, Bellerophon grew proud, believing he deserved a place among the gods. He attempted to ride Pegasus to Mount Olympus itself. But Pegasus, loyal to the heavens rather than to mortal pride, shook him off gently yet decisively. Bellerophon fell back to earth, humbled, while Pegasus continued upward, untouched by the ambition of man. The gods welcomed Pegasus, honoring his purity and strength. They placed him among the stars, where he could soar eternally, free from the weight of mortal burdens. His constellation, marked by the Great Square, glides across the night sky like a window into another world, one filled with gentle breezes and silent, endless flight. As you picture Pegasus now, imagine him drifting across the heavens with wings spread wide, each feather catching the faint glow of starlight. His presence feels soft, soothing, like a breath of cool air on a warm evening. The Great Square forms the body of the horse, stable and serene, while the surrounding stars hint at the outline of wings that stretch far beyond what the eye can see. Pegasus invites you to rest, to rise above your worries, to drift lightly through the quiet air of the night. His myth, born from shadow, shaped by heroism, and lifted into the sky, reminds you that beauty often emerges from unexpected places, and that even in moments of darkness, something wondrous can take flight.
There's a certain kind of quiet strength that settles over the world at night, the kind that feels patient and timeless. Under that stillness, the constellation of Hercules rests, not with the brilliance of Orion, nor with the graceful symmetry of Pegasus, but with a humbler, more grounded presence. His stars are faint and scattered, requiring a patient eye to trace their shape. Yet his story is one of the most enduring in Greek mythology, filled with trials, redemption, and the long, winding path toward peace. To look at Hercules in the sky is to witness the echo of a hero's journey softened by distance, transformed into something gentle and steady, something that matches the quiet rhythm of the night. Imagine the world into which Hercules was born. The air carries the scent of olive groves warmed by the sun, and distant hills roll gently toward the horizon. Hercules, known to the Greeks as Heracles, came into life as the son of Zeus and a mortal woman named Alcmene. His birth alone sparked turmoil, for Hera, Zeus's wife, was not one to overlook her husband's mortal entanglements. Hercules' very existence was a reminder of Zeus's wandering affections, and Hera's anger became the shadow that followed him from infancy to adulthood. Yet Hercules was no ordinary child. Even as a baby, his strength was said to be immense, so great that when Hera sent serpents to his cradle in a moment of spite, he reached out calmly and strangled them with his tiny hands. Imagine that scene. The soft glow of lamplight in a quiet room, Alcmene awakening with start, only to find her child holding the lifeless snakes without fear. It was a sign of the extraordinary life he would lead, though not a life free from suffering. Hercules grew into a man of great power and great heart. His presence was imposing, his strength unmatched, but he was not a figure carved from arrogance. Instead, he carried a humble sincerity, a desire to protect and to do good. Yet Hera's resentment still lingered, and one day it manifested in a tragic twist of fate. In a moment clouded by madness inflicted upon him, Hercules harmed those he loved most. When the fog lifted, grief and remorse weighed upon him like a mountain. Seeking atonement, Hercules turned to the oracle at Delphi, hoping to find a path forward. The oracle instructed him to serve King Eurystheus and complete a series of tasks, challenges so dangerous and demanding that they would become known as the 12 labors. These labors were not just feats of strength, but acts of redemption. Each one pushed Hercules to confront not only the physical world around him, but the turmoil within his soul. Imagine him standing at the entrance of the Nemean lion's cave, the air thick with tension. The lion was no ordinary beast. Its golden fur could not be pierced by any weapon. Hercules fought with his bare hands, wrestling the creature in a silent struggle beneath the dim glow of filtered sunlight. His victory came not from brute force alone, but from endurance and an unwavering spirit. Another labor sent him deep into marshes to face the Lernaean Hydra, a serpent-like creature with many heads. For every head he cut off, 2 more grew in its place. With the help of his loyal nephew, he devised a strategy to prevent the regrowth, burning each wound before a new head could emerge. The air must have been thick with the smell of smoke and the hiss of scorched flesh, yet Hercules pressed on, his movements deliberate and sure. Some labors tested more than his strength. They challenged his patience and compassion. When tasked with capturing the Ceryneian hind, a sacred deer with golden antlers, Hercules pursued it for a full year, following its swift leaps through forests and over mountain cliffs. He did not harm it. Instead, he found a way to capture it alive, honoring its sacred nature even as he fulfilled his quest. Other labors pushed the limits of what any mortal could endure. He journeyed to far edges of the world to retrieve the cattle Geryon, a monstrous giant whose footsteps made the earth tremble. He descended into the dark underworld itself to capture Cerberus, the 3-headed guardian of the realm of the dead. Imagine the stillness of that moment. The dim glow of ghostly souls drifting past, the echo of distant wails, and Hercules standing firm, holding the chain of a creature feared by both mortals and gods. Through each labor, Hercules slowly transformed. The weight of his guilt began to lighten, not because he forgot, but because he worked tirelessly to restore balance to his soul. His strength became a tool for justice, his endurance a symbol of resilience, his humility a reminder that even the strongest hearts can break. and can heal again. When his labors were complete, Hercules traveled far and wide, undertaking new adventures, helping those in need, and continuing to grow as both hero and man. His life was not without sorrow, but the thread of redemption wove itself through every chapter of his story. Eventually, through acts of courage and sacrifice, he earned a place among the gods. His mortal suffering was set aside, and in recognition of his journey, he was welcomed to Mount Olympus, where he found peace at last. The gods placed Hercules among the stars, not as a symbol of triumph alone, but as a reminder of the journey that had shaped him. His constellation is not the brightest, nor the easiest to find. Its stars are scattered and faint, requiring patience and careful attention to trace. There is something fitting in that his story was never about glory without struggle or strength without vulnerability. It was about a quiet, steady transformation, the kind that mirrors the soft, almost imperceptible movement of stars across the night sky. Imagine lying beneath that sky now, the cool air settling gently around you. Hercules rests above, his stars forming a loose figure that seems to lean slightly, as though caught mid-step in some forgotten celestial task. There is no urgency in his movement, no echo of struggle, only calm. His once tumultuous story has become a peaceful part of the heavens, softened by time, smoothed by distance. As you breathe slowly, think of his constellation turning with the night. It does not shine with the intensity of brighter constellations, but its steady presence offers comfort. It whispers that strength can be gentle, that endurance can be quiet, and that even the longest journeys can end in rest. Beneath the sky, Hercules becomes more than a hero. He becomes a companion for the night, a reminder that healing is slow, that stories evolve, and that peace often arrives in the softest, quietest ways. And as you drift deeper into calm, his stars continue their patient arc, guiding you gently toward dreams shaped by resilience, courage, and the enduring light of the night. When we look up at the night sky, it's easy to imagine that the constellations belong only to one culture, that their stories are fixed and universal. But the truth is much softer, much broader, like a whisper carried from land to land across centuries. The stars themselves never change, yet the meanings woven into them shift depending on who is watching, who is dreaming, and who is telling the story. What one civilization saw as a mighty hero, another imagined as an animal or spirit. The constellations become a kind of cosmic mirror, reflecting the values, fears, and hopes of the people beneath them. And so, when we drift into the midst of the night sky, we enter not just a Greek world, but a tapestry of cultures, each leaving gentle footprints across the heavens. Imagine yourself removed from noise and time, drifting across landscapes where the night sky has guided countless generations. You begin in ancient Greece, where stories of gods and heroes shimmer faintly on the horizon. But as you breathe deeper, the world around you shifts. The air grows cooler or warmer, depending on the land you drift toward. The scent of forests, deserts, mountains, or oceans fades in and out gently. You are floating from culture to culture, held softly by the same sky, listening to the quiet hum of humanity's collective imagination. Long before Greek myths were written, other civilizations were already tracing their own patterns across the stars. In the lands of the Middle East, where night stretched wide over sand and stone, constellations were not just stories but tools. Guides that helped traders crossing deserts find safe passage. The air that would have been warm, even after sunset, with winds sweeping softly across dunes. People would gather near campfires, pointing upward and speaking of star patterns that marked seasons, migrations, and divine messages. To them, Orion was not a hunter, but sometimes a giant or a protector, and the Pleiades cluster became symbols of daughters, companions, or shepherds depending on the tribe. Drifting farther east, you enter the cradle of Chinese star lore, where constellations were arranged into intricate celestial palaces and heavenly courts. Instead of heroes battling monsters, the stars formed emperors, ministers, and guardians of cosmic order. In their view, the sky mirrored the structure of Earth, an empire above reflecting the empire below. The Milky Way became a celestial river, where lovers separated by fate could meet once a year. The constellations glowed softly like lanterns hung in an endless night, guiding not only travelers, but also the rhythms of agriculture and the beliefs of entire dynasties. The stories were gentle, orderly, and filled with symbolism. As you drift southward across warm oceans, you come to the islands of Polynesia, where the night sky was a vast map stretched above the waves. Imagine sitting in a canoe on calm waters, the smell of sea salt and warm breezes brushing your skin. Navigators here read the stars with extraordinary precision, memorizing hundreds of them, each tied to a direction, a season, or a sacred lineage. Constellations became wayfinders, patterns that connected islands separated by immense distances. Some stars represented birds. Some represented ancestors returning to guide their descendants. Their stories were not just tales, but practical poetry, woven into the movements of tides and wind. If you float westward again, imagine yourself crossing continents until you reach the land of the Navajo, where stories move as gently as sand carried by the wind. The Navajo did not see the same constellations the Greeks saw. Instead, they created sacred patterns such as a fire god, the revolving male and female, and the coyote who sprinkled stars into the sky. Their constellations were tied closely to balance, harmony, and healing. Each pattern taught a lesson about living in alignment with the world around them. When they looked upward, they didn't just see stars. They saw reminders of stories that kept their communities strong and peaceful. Travel again in imagination, letting the night air shift like the turning of a page, and you find yourself in ancient Egypt. Here, the stars were divine in the most literal sense. They believed the sky itself was a goddess arched over the earth, her body stretching from horizon to horizon. The bright star Sirius signaled the flood of the Nile, bringing life to the land. The constellation we call Orion was seen as Osiris, the god of rebirth and the afterlife. To the Egyptians, the heavens were a kingdom of gods whose movements shaped the cycles of life, death, and renewal. The stars glowed not just as symbols, but as living presences watching over the land. As you continue drifting from culture to culture, the stories change, but the feeling remains familiar. In Northern Europe, ancient people saw bears, hunters, and wagons. In India, constellations became homes of sages, heroes, and cosmic serpents. In the Arctic, the Inuit saw sky wolves chasing the sun and moon across the sky. And in the vast savannas of Africa, the stars became ancestors, guides who watched over the living and whispered wisdom into the night. Every culture, no matter how distant or isolated, looked up at the sky with the same basic emotions: curiosity, wonder, longing, and a desire to understand the vastness surrounding them. The stories they created were shaped by their environment. Those who lived near oceans imagined sea creatures ascending into the heavens. Those who lived surrounded by mountains saw sky deer leaping between peaks. Those who traveled endless plains imagined sky spirits walking among the stars. Yet no matter the story, the purpose was the same: to make sense of the mystery above, to find comfort in its constancy, and to leave behind meaning that would last longer than a single lifetime. As you breathe softly now, imagine all these cultures layered gently atop one another, like thin veils of memory floating in the night. The constellations become a shared language spoken differently in every part of the world, yet understood by all who look upward. The stars do not choose one story over another. They quietly hold all of them at once, waiting for whichever tale you are ready to hear. In this calm moment, you share in a tradition that stretches across continents and centuries. You are connected not only to Greek mythology, but to the universal human desire to weave stories from starlight. You breathe beneath the same sky that guided ancient travelers, inspired poets, comforted wanderers, and lit the way for dreamers. The constellations shimmer softly above, inviting you into a world where stories overlap, merge, and drift gently like clouds across the night. And as your mind begins to settle, the vast tapestry of cross-cultural star stories becomes a soothing reminder. No matter where you are, no matter who you are, the stars have always been companions, silent, patient, and full of meaning. In the vast region of the American Southwest, where red earth meets endless sky and the evenings glow with the soft amber light of desert sunsets, the night holds a special kind of magic. The air becomes cool and still as darkness spreads gently across the mesas and canyons. Stars appear slowly, quietly, as though they are being called forth by memory itself. Here, under this expansive dome of shimmering light, the Navajo people dine, shape their own meanings from the sky. Their constellations are woven not from battles or heroic hunts, but from harmony, balance, healing, and the understanding that every element of the universe holds a purpose. Imagine standing within this landscape as twilight fades. The horizon glows faintly, blending into shades of purple and deepening blue. The silhouettes of distant mountains stand firm like ancient guardians. The land feels vast and alive, whispering stories carried across generations. When the stars begin to show themselves, the Navajo do not see the figures familiar from Greek mythology. They see a different language entirely, one written in patterns that connect earth, sky, and spirit in quiet unity. The Navajo creation stories teach that the world was carefully woven into existence with intention and balance. When the holy people, spiritual beings central to Navajo cosmology, shaped the sky, they placed the stars thoughtfully, assigning each one a role. Some were positioned directly by divine hands. Others were placed by a playful figure known as Coyote, who hurried the process with less care, scattering stars across the darkness in a moment of impatience. You can almost imagine him, lively and curious, lifting a blanket full of stars and shaking it upward so the lights flew into the sky in a burst of improvised beauty. Because of this mix of order and spontaneity, the Navajo sky carries both structure and freedom, much like life itself. As the night deepens, one of the most important Navajo constellations rises, the revolving male. His pattern of stars forms a shape that slowly circles around the celestial pole, always moving but never drifting away. To the Navajo, he represents motion, time, and the ongoing cycle of seasons. As he moves, he guides rituals, agricultural activities, and the rhythms of daily life. Opposite him in the sky is a revolving female, who mirrors his movement in a harmonious dance. Together, they embody the balance of masculine and feminine energies, creating a cosmic equilibrium. Their steady rotation becomes a reminder that life moves in cycles, and that harmony requires both change and constancy. Imagine them now, opposite each other in the sky, turning with patient grace. Their motion is slow, barely perceptible in the moment, yet deeply meaningful over time. The Navajo would watch their movement through the seasons, interpreting their positions as part of the natural order. When the revolving male rose in a certain place, it signaled certain tasks: planting, harvesting, ceremonies, or rest. The sky was not separate from life. It was a living calendar, a guide for every action, every intention. Nearby, another constellation holds great significance: the fire god. His stars form a pattern that represents a figure who protects the sacred fire, a symbol at the heart of many Navajo ceremonies. Fire brings warmth, light, and transformation. It is treated with reverence, fed carefully, and spoken to as though it were alive. The fire god in the sky reflects this sacred relationship. When his constellation rises, it reminds the Navajo of the importance of respecting fire, tending to it, and understanding its dual nature. Fire can destroy, but it can also purify and heal. The stars of the fire god glow like embers in the darkness, steady and watchful. There is also the constellation known as the Coyote star. Its pattern is subtle, and its story gentle yet filled with wisdom. Coyote, in many Navajo stories, is both teacher and trickster. He is a reminder that life holds unpredictability, that even divine plans can be disrupted by curiosity or mischief. And yet, Coyote is not a villain. He is a necessary force. Without his impulsive scattering of stars across the sky, the heavens would be too orderly, too perfect. His actions bring variation, beauty, and spontaneity. When the Navajo looked at the Coyote star, they saw a cosmic reminder that even mistakes, imperfections, and unexpected moments have their place in the world. As the night stretches onward, the sky becomes deeper, and more Navajo constellations emerge. Some are protectors, some are guides, some are teachers. Unlike Greek constellations, which often depict dramatic tales of struggle, the Navajo patterns reflect relationships between people and nature, between spirit and land, between the predictable and the unknown. Each story is interwoven with lessons about living in harmony. The Navajo concept of Hazo, a word that embodies beauty, balance, and harmony, is at the center of their star stories. To live in Hazo is to walk in beauty, to exist in balance with the world, the sky, the seasons, and one's community. The constellations are not remote or untouchable. They participate actively in this harmony. When they rise and set, they guide ceremonies that restore balance. When their positions shift, people realign their own rhythms to match nature's flow. Imagine sitting by a small fire in a traditional hogan, the circular dwelling of the Navajo people. The wood crackles softly, and the smoke rises gently into the cool night. Outside, the constellations hover like teachers watching over the land. An elder might sit beside you, speaking quietly, pointing upward with a slow, deliberate gesture. Their voice is soft, like the sound of wind brushing against sagebrush. They explain that each star was placed where it is for a reason. Some represent guardians who watch over travelers. Some represent animals who once walked the earth and now walk the sky. Others represent tools or symbols used in ceremonies meant to heal the sick or restore peace in troubled hearts. In the Navajo worldview, the sky is as alive as the earth. The constellations are not distant. They are present, participating in the cycles of weather, growth, and time. When storms gather, the sky feels aware. When stars shift positions, the world prepares for new seasons. And as the night drifts into early dawn, the constellations fade not in disappearance, but in rest, waiting to rise again when the world calls for them. As you breathe slowly and deeply, imagine the soft rotation of these constellations, their movement nearly imperceptible yet deeply comforting. Their stories wrap gently around you like a blanket woven from wind and starlight. In this peaceful moment, the Navajo sky invites you to feel the harmony it embodies, the balance it nurtures, and the quiet wisdom it offers. And as you drift into the softness of this night, you become part of that same timeless stillness, a stillness shared by storytellers, wanderers, and dreamers who looked up at the same stars for countless generations. Far across the world from the deserts and canyons of the American Southwest, another sky unfolds, one shaped by mountains veiled in mist, ancient rivers winding through sprawling landscapes, and the steady heartbeat of dynasties rising and falling. In ancient China, the night sky was not merely a canvas of stars, but a heavenly empire governed with the same grace, order, and hierarchy as the earthly one below. When the people of early China looked upward, they saw not just constellations, but celestial palaces, spiritual guardians, noble beasts, and cosmic administrators conducting affairs in the heavens just as emperors and ministers carried out duties on earth. Imagine standing beneath that sky thousands of years ago, somewhere near the banks of the Yellow River. The night air is cool, carrying the faint scent of distant pines. Lanterns glow softly inside wooden homes, their warm light flickering like tiny fireflies. Outside, farmers and scholars alike tilt their heads upward, tracing the gentle patterns of the stars. The sky is a woven tapestry, each cluster of lights forming part of an elegant structure, mirroring the imperial courts, the balance of nature and the rhythm of seasons. Unlike the Greeks, who populated the sky with heroes and creatures of dramatic myth, the ancient Chinese saw the heavens as a grand reflection of organized society. Every star had a role. Every constellation held responsibility. Some represented guardians of the north, south, east, and west. Others formed the celestial palace of the emperor, complete with attendants, generals, servants, and spiritual advisors. The night sky became an eternal court, ordered, calm, and purposeful. At the heart of the celestial world were the four symbols, known as the guardians of the four directions. These were not single constellations, but vast regions of the sky, each ruled by a noble mythical creature. Imagine them emerging slowly as the stars brighten, majestic figures woven from starlight and ancient imagination. To the east, the azure dragon stretches across the heavens. This dragon is not a creature of fear, but strength, renewal, and protection. Its form curves gracefully across the sky, its celestial body lighting the dawn of spring. When the azure dragon rose during early evenings, it signaled the beginning of planting seasons and new life. Picture the great serpent-like dragon glowing faintly blue in the night, its scales shimmering like ripples of water beneath moonlight. Its presence is gentle yet commanding, a reminder that life moves forward in cycles, always renewing, always beginning again. To the south lies a vermilion bird, a creature of fire and elegance. It spreads its wings across the summer sky, feathers glowing with warmth. In Chinese myth, this bird symbolizes beauty, grace, and the vibrant energy of the hottest season. Imagine its wings shimmering like soft embers, illuminating the heavens with a quiet flame. It does not dart swiftly like earthly birds. Instead, it glides with calm, rhythmic motion, like a dream drifting through the warm night air. To the west, the white tiger stands as guardian and protector. Strong, majestic, and fierce in its loyalty, it glows with the pale light of autumn stars. The tiger embodies courage and the quiet resilience needed as the year begins to cool and dusk arrives earlier each evening. Picture the constellation as a silent sentinel, watching over travelers and guiding those who journey through the darkening months. And in the north rests the black tortoise, though not a tortoise alone, often depicted entwined with serpentine companion. It represents winter, longevity, and endurance required during the coldest stretch of the year. The black tortoise moves slowly across the sky, its stars glowing dimly but steadily, like coals beneath a thick blanket of snow. It reminds those beneath it that even in stillness, life persists, and that patience is a virtue woven into the cycles of nature. These four celestial creatures, each tied to a season, direction, and element, form the framework of the Chinese night sky. They are vast, symbolic, and deeply calming to imagine, spreading their protective energy across the heavens with balance and harmony. But the sky held much more than guardians. At its center lay the purple forbidden enclosure, the celestial equivalent of the emperor's palace. Just as earthly emperors lived in Forbidden City, walled off and revered, so too did the Emperor of Heaven reside among the stars in this sacred space. Constellations within this region represented ministers, advisors, noble officials, and attendants. The movement of these stars was believed to mirror the fate of the empire itself. If certain stars grew dim or wandered out of alignment, it could be interpreted as a sign that imbalance or trouble was stirring in the earthly court. Imagine ancient astronomers, careful observers who spent their lives studying the sky, standing atop wooden watchtowers, wrapped in warm robes against the cool night winds. They moved slowly, quietly, marking the positions of stars on bamboo scrolls. Their work is deliberate, almost meditative. Each point of light is significant, each shift in brightness a message. In this world, the sky is not a distant mystery, but a guide woven into the structure of society. The Chinese also saw constellations as representations of familiar earthly objects. A group of stars might form the shape of a chariot, a fishing net, a drum, or a marketplace. These patterns infuse the heavens with everyday life, creating a sense of comfort. Imagine lying beneath such a sky, recognizing objects that filled your daily routine reflected above you, bridging the gap between the mundane and the sublime. One of the most beloved celestial stories in Chinese tradition is the tale of the Weaver Girl and the Cowherd. Their stars are known in the West as Vega and Altair. In the myth, they are lovers separated by a great celestial river, the Milky Way. Once a year, on the 7th day of the 7th lunar month, a bridge of magpies forms, allowing them to meet. Imagine these two stars glowing softly on opposite sides of the sky, like souls reaching toward one another across a shimmering river of light. Their story is tender, gentle, and filled with longing, a perfect illustration of how the Chinese viewed the heavens. Not as battlegrounds, but as spaces for love, harmony, and emotional reflection. As the night deepens, the sky becomes a vast, quiet kingdom. Every constellation, whether guardian, object, or story, hold a place in the cosmic order. The Chinese way of reading the stars carried a sense of devotion to balance, yin and yang, dark and light, movement and stillness. Their constellations were not static images, but living participants in a universe where everything flowed naturally into everything else. Now, as you rest under this imagined sky, feel the serenity of that order. The azure dragon coils gently along the eastern horizon. The vermilion bird glides gracefully across the south. The white tiger watches in calm vigilance in the west. The black tortoise settles into the north, radiating patience and endurance. Above them, the celestial palace rests in quiet dignity. And beneath all of it, the night is soft, timeless, and filled with a sense of harmony, one that ancient Chinese storytellers passed down through countless generations, and one that continues to drift gently through the heavens even now. In the warmth of ancient Egypt, where the Nile wound its way through golden deserts and towering palm trees swayed gently beneath the sun, the night skies shimmer with a presence unlike anywhere else on earth. When the day's heat finally softened and the desert released its long-held warmth back into the air, people emerged from their homes to watch the stars awaken. The sky above Egypt was not just a backdrop. It was a sacred realm where gods traveled, where souls journeyed, and where the boundaries between life and eternity dissolved into shimmering constellations. To the Egyptians, the heavens were alive with purpose, woven tightly with the myths that shaped their world. Imagine standing on the banks of the Nile at dusk. The water glows with streaks of gold. The sky shifts into gentle hues of orange and deep purples, and the silhouettes of distant temples soften into horizon. As the last traces of sunlight fade, the stars begin to appear slowly, cautiously, as though stepping into their nightly procession. And above it all stretches a vast, arching form, an unseen goddess whose body spans the entire sky. In Egyptian mythology, the sky itself is the goddess Nut. She is often depicted arching protectively over the earth, her fingertips touching one horizon and her toes reaching the other. She is the great canopy of stars, the mother whose body cradles the heavens. Every night, Nut swallows the sun god Are as he completes his journey across the sky. And every morning, she gives birth to him again, allowing day to return. The stars are said to be the souls of the deceased or the children of Nut, glittering softly across her celestial form. Imagine her presence now, a gentle, enveloping curve above you, her star-studded body glowing softly against a velvet night. Among the countless stars woven across Nut's form, one constellation held special significance to the Egyptians, the pattern we know today as Orion. To the Greeks, Orion was a hunter. To the Egyptians, he was Osiris, the beloved god of rebirth, agriculture, and the afterlife. Whenever Orion rose in the night sky, Egyptians felt the presence of Osiris returning to watch over them. His constellation, bright and clear, hovered above the desert, a reminder of the cycles of death and renewal that shaped their spiritual beliefs. Imagine the figure of Osiris stretching across the heavens. The 3 stars of Orion's belt shine like jewels on a divine sash. The brilliance of Betelgeuse and Rigel glow like royal adornments. In the desert stillness, these stars appear particularly sharp, as though they have been polished by centuries of worship. To the Egyptians, the rising of Osiris marked the beginning of a sacred time when the Nile would soon flood, returning life to the land and nourishing the crops. Thus, the constellation was both mythical and deeply practical, guiding the rhythm of harvests and ceremonies. Beside Osiris shines another grouping of stars linked to his story, the constellation we call the Pleiades. To the Egyptians, this cluster was sometimes associated with the 7 Hathors, protective goddesses who oversaw fate, music, and joy. The Pleiades glimmer like tiny droplets of light, delicate yet powerful in their symbolism. They were believed to safeguard both the living and the dead, singing softly in the heavens, offering comfort to souls journeying into the afterlife. But perhaps the most sacred star of all was Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky. To the Egyptians, Sirius was Sothis, the embodiment of the goddess Isis, wife of Osiris. Her rising at dawn each year signaled the approach of the Nile's life-giving flood. Imagine how eagerly the ancient Egyptians waited for that moment, the first appearance of Sirius returning after his long absence from the sky. It was a sign of renewal, hope, and abundance. The Egyptians tied their entire calendar to this celestial event, marking it as the new year, a time of celebration and gratitude. Isis and Osiris were central figures in Egyptian mythology. Their love story, filled with devotion, tragedy, and restoration, echoed through every part of Egyptian life. When Osiris was killed and dismembered by his brother Set, Isis searched tirelessly for his pieces, guided by magic and the light of the stars. Through her love and determination, she restored Osiris and gave birth to their son, Horus. The stars above, especially Sirius and Orion, were constant reminders of this eternal story, a cycle of loss and renewal reflected in the natural world. Imagine the night rituals held in honor of these gods. Priests and priestesses walked slowly through temple courtyards lit by flickering oil lamps. Incense drifted upward in thin trails, carrying prayers to the sky. They would look upward, watching the constellations rise, trusting that Osiris and Isis watched them in return. The temples themselves were aligned with celestial events. Massive stone structures positioned so that sunlight or starlight would pass through corridors only on sacred days. These alignments fuse architecture with astronomy, creating a harmony between the earthly and the divine. And the Milky Way, stretching like a river of faint light across the night sky, became for the Egyptians a cosmic reflection of the Nile. They imagined it as a heavenly waterway traveled by the souls of the dead. Osiris, as the god of the afterlife, guided them through its shimmering expanse. This vision turned the night sky into a mirror of earthly life. The Nile brought water to the land, and the Milky Way carried the spirits to eternity. When Egyptians gazed upward, they did not see emptiness. They saw a promise of continued existence. As the night deepens even further in your imagination, picture the silence of the desert. The air cools gently, the sand releasing warmth stored from the sun. Above, the stars drift slowly across the sky, following their ancient paths. Osiris glides along the horizon, steady and familiar. Sirius pulses brightly like a heartbeat. The arc of Nut stretches overhead, embracing the world in her eternal watch. The celestial scene brings with a profound sense of calm. The Egyptians believed that the heavens maintained order in the universe. As long as the stars followed their courses, the world below remained balanced, and in that belief lies a quiet comfort, a reassurance that even in the vastness of existence, there is structure, rhythm, and continuity. As your breathing softens, imagine the stars glowing just a little brighter, their ancient light touching your skin like a warm whisper. You are sharing in a tradition that spans thousands of years. The same constellations that watched over pharaohs, farmers, and children now watch over you. Their stories linger gently in the night, inviting you to drift deeper into peace, carried by the soft, enduring glow of the Egyptian sky. Long before clocks ticked or calendars marked months and years, people lifted their gaze to the sky and found their first measured time written in starlight. The zodiac, a familiar concept today, began as nothing more than a quiet procession of constellations drifting steadily along the path of the sun. Ancient sky watchers noticed that as the seasons passed, different constellations rose at dawn or hovered above the horizon at sunset. These subtle changes became a celestial rhythm, guiding harvest rituals and human understanding. Over generations, this procession transformed into one of the most enduring systems ever created, a cosmic calendar woven from myth, astronomy, and the soft turning of the heavens. Imagine standing in a world untouched by artificial light, where the night sky appears as a vast jeweled band stretching from one horizon to the other. Across this grand arc, known now as ecliptic, lie 12 constellations that would eventually become the zodiac. But in those early days, they were not symbols of personality or prediction. They were markers of the season, a way to know when winter ended, when spring began, when rains would return, and when the land was ready to rest. The Babylonians were among the first to divide the sky into 12 equal parts, each marked by a constellation that rose at certain times of year. To them, these patterns were not only stars, but celestial beings with influence over earthly events. Their priests stood on tall ziggurats, watching the heavens with patient devotion. Imagine them wrapped in thick woven garments against the desert chill, their eyes tracing the slow migration of stars as though reading sacred scripture. The constellations became a divine map, the path of the sun passing through each sign a reminder that time flows in cycles, not in straight lines. As centuries passed, this system traveled westward into the Mediterranean world, where the Greeks began interpreting the zodiac through the lens of their own mythology. Aries became the golden ram of a heroic rescue. Leo became the great lion defeated by Hercules. Sagittarius became a wise centaur archer. Each constellation inherited a story, a personality, a sense of motion and emotion. The zodiac transformed from a simple celestial calendar into a narrative tapestry. The night sky turned into a library of myths, each constellation a chapter waiting to be read under moonlit stillness. Picture ancient Greek philosophers sitting beneath olive trees, scrolls resting beside them, discussing why these constellations moved the way they did. They traced the sun's path through them, noting how it spent roughly a month in each one. This steady rhythm offered structure to the year, dividing time into segments that felt natural and intuitive. Farmers relied on these patterns to prepare their soil. Sailors trusted them to navigate the unpredictable sea. Poets used them as metaphors for change, growth, and destiny. Then came the Romans, who carried the zodiac into their growing empire, blending Greek interpretations with their own beliefs. The system spread through trade routes, temples, and scholarly circles until it became a familiar part of the ancient world. Even as cultures change, the zodiac remained constant, a celestial thread linking people across land and language. Imagine how comforting that must have felt. No matter where you were, standing in a desert, traveling across open sea, or resting in a mountain village, the same stars drifted overhead. The same constellations told the same timeless stories. The zodiac became more than a tool. It became a shared experience, a quiet reminder that humanity was united under one sky. As centuries unfolded, astrology took root, an attempt to interpret the influence of the constellations on human life. Though the practice grew complex and varied across cultures, its foundation always rested on the same simple observation: the heavens move with purpose. People began to believe that the moment of one's birth, captured within a specific arrangement of stars and planets, might reflect aspects of one's character or fate. Whether or not this was true mattered less than the comfort it brought, the sense that every life had a place in the cosmic tapestry. Meanwhile, astronomers continued to refine the way they understood the zodiac from a scientific perspective. They studied the tilt of the Earth, the changing position of the sun, and the shifting alignment of the constellations over millennia. Their work added clarity, precision, and mathematics to what had once been intuitive and mystical. Yet even with all this newfound knowledge, the wonder of the zodiac never faded. Science and storytelling intertwined, each bringing depth to the other. Imagine lying on a grassy hill centuries ago, feeling the cool night air brush your skin. You hear distant insects humming, and somewhere nearby a river glides softly over smooth stones. Above you, the zodiac constellations drift in slow motion, their stars blinking with gentle persistence. You might see Taurus rising stout and sturdy in the east, its bright Aldebaran glowing like an ember. Or perhaps you see Gemini, the twin stars Castor and Pollux shining side by side. In the distance, Virgo stretches her graceful outline, marking the approach of harvest season. Each constellation brings with a feeling, a reminder of winds that shift, flowers that bloom, rains that nourish, and seasons that rest. The zodiac becomes a living calendar, guiding not just nations but the quiet rhythms of every village, every family, every wandering soul beneath the sky. And even now, thousands of years later, this ancient system continues to drift through our lives. We still speak of zodiac signs, still feel a quiet curiosity when we read about the movements of stars, still look up and try to find meaning in the slow, patient turning of a night. The constellations have become familiar companions, each one carrying the weight of countless generations who looked upon them before us. As the night deepens around you, imagine the zodiac stretching gently overhead, forming a soft, glowing band across the sky. The constellations drift like old stories whispered on a breeze, timeless and unhurried. They ask nothing from you, only that you look, breathe, and feel the same quiet wonder that ancient sky watchers once felt. Their presence is soothing, grounding, and endlessly patient. In this peaceful moment, the zodiac becomes not a system of prediction or fate, but a reminder of continuity, a reminder that time flows like starlight, steady, gentle, and eternal, and that you are part of a story written across the heavens long before words or calendars existed. Long before satellites circled the earth and glowing screens offered digital maps, travelers moved through the world guided only by the quiet rhythm of nature. The sun marked the days, the moon traced the months, but it was the stars, the steady, patient stars, that guided them through the vast unknown. For sailors drifting across restless oceans and nomads journeying through endless stretches of sand, the night sky was not something to gaze at casually. It was a companion, a teacher, and a map written in shimmering light. When everything else around them was unpredictable, the constellations remained steady, whispering direction to those who knew how to listen. Imagine yourself standing on the deck of an ancient ship, the wood worn smooth by countless journeys. The waves rolled gently beneath you, their soft motion rocking the vessel like a cradle. The sky above is vast and dark, stretching to every horizon with the quiet assurance of eternity. The air smells of salt and wind. Lanterns flicker dimly along the ship's railings, their warm glow a small contrast to the vast coolness of the sea. In the distance, Nothing exists but ocean and sky. Yet to the sailors who lived centuries ago, this was not empty space. It was a road, illuminated by constellations they had memorized since childhood. The North Star, Polaris, held a special place in their hearts. Unlike other stars, which glide across the sky throughout the night, Polaris remains nearly fixed in place, hovering above the northern horizon like a quiet guardian. Its steady position made it the anchor for navigation. If sailors could find Polaris, they could find north. And if they knew north, they could find their way home. Imagine a sailor stepping away from the ship's bustle, climbing to the deck in the still hours past midnight. He lifts his gaze upward in searches of the little bear, Ursa Minor, because Polaris rests at its tip. When he finds it, a sense of calm settles into his chest. No matter how dark the waters, no matter how lost the ship might feel, the sky offers a direction. The constellations do not shout their guidance. They whisper it gently, quietly, like a lullaby sung by the universe itself. Far inland, in vast deserts where sand stretches farther than the eye can see, nomads relied on the stars with equal devotion. The desert can be disorienting, especially at night. Wind shifts the dunes, erasing footprints and landmarks. Without mountains or trees to guide the way, even the most experienced travelers could lose their bearings. But the sky above, unchanging, vast, and open, became their perfect map. Imagine a caravan of camels moving slowly under the cool desert night. The heat of the day has finally faded. The moon casts silvery shadows across the landscapes, and the air is crisp and dry. The desert nomads look up, locating familiar constellations like Orion rising in the east or the bright star Sirius glowing with piercing clarity. These stars mark not just direction, but also seasons. When certain constellations rose at dawn, nomads knew it was time to move north toward grazing lands. When others appeared overhead at dusk, it signaled the coming of winter winds. Their knowledge was not written down. It was sung, shared, and remembered. Around their fires, under skies overflowing with stars, elders taught the young how to read the tapestry above them. Follow the line of Orion's belt, they might say softly, pointing upward with a gently curved finger. It will guide you to the rising of Sirius. And where Sirius rises, you'll find the direction to the southern dunes. The lessons were poetic and practical at the same time. Even in forests and mountains, the stars remained faithful guides. Shepherds, tending their flocks through the night, watched the constellations move slowly across the sky, marking the passage of hours. They knew that when the Pleiades rose above the horizon, dawn was still several hours away. When the constellation Scorpio slipped behind the mountains, summer was ending and autumn would soon cool the air. The stars became timekeepers, their steady journey across the sky more reliable than any tool crafted by human hands. Imagine lying beside a quiet fire in a meadow, surrounded by tall grass. The flames crackle gently. The breeze carries the soft fragrance of earth and fresh leaves. Above you, the stars shift almost imperceptibly, their slow travel reminder that time is always moving, even when the world feels still. To ancient people, these tiny motions were essential. They could gauge how long a journey would take, when storms might come, or how far they had traveled simply by observing which constellations stood above them. For the Polynesian navigators of the vast Pacific, the stars were an entire science, more precise and intricate than any modern compass. These wayfinders memorized hundreds of stars, each associated with a direction, a season, and a path across the ocean. They read the sky as though it were scripture. Sitting in their long, narrow canoes, they studied how stars rose and set, how they spun around celestial poles, how their heights shifted with the passing of the night. Imagine a canoe gliding through warm tropical waters. The stars glitter overhead like 1,000 guiding lanterns. The navigator sits at the bow, calm and focused, his eyes scanning every part of the sky. He knows the moment when one star will dip into the horizon and when another will take its place. These changes mark invisible roads across the ocean, paths traveled by generations of his people. There is no paper chart, no sextant, no compass, just trust in the stars and the knowledge carried in his heart. For all these travelers, sailors, shepherds, nomads, navigators, the stars were more than tools. They were companions. On long, lonely nights, when darkness pressed from all sides, The constellations offered comfort. Their story became reminders that someone long ago had seen the same lights, walked the same paths, felt the same longing to find direction. The constellations were a bridge across time, connecting every traveler who ever looked up at the same shimmering sky. As you rest now, imagine the stars shifting gently like slow-moving tides. Their motion is calm, patient, reassuring. They ask nothing of you, only to breathe, to look, to feel the quiet steadiness they offer. The same constellations that guided ancient travelers shine above you even now, unchanged by centuries. Their presence is a reminder that no matter how vast the world feels, you are never truly lost. The sky has always been a map, and its stars have always been guides. Long before modern astronomy shaped the way we study the heavens, there were people who watched the night sky with a quiet combination of curiosity, patience, and reverence. These early thinkers were not equipped with telescopes or digital charts. Instead, they carried scrolls, simple instruments, and their own careful eyes. Among them were two figures whose influence would echo across centuries, Hipparchus and Ptolemy. Their lives, separated by time yet connected by purpose, helped transform starlit myths into a system of understanding that shaped the scientific world. Imagine a warm Greek night more than 2,000 years ago. The air is still, carrying only the faintest scent of olive trees. A scholar stands atop a small hill, his scrolls tucked beneath one arm. Above him stretches the night sky, brilliant, dense, alive with stars that shimmer like flecks of silver on velvet. He watches them with steady gaze, noting the way they rise, drift, and settle as the hours pass. This scholar is Hipparchus, often called the father of astronomical cataloging. Though the world around him sleeps, he remains awake, measuring the heavens with a dedication that feels almost meditative. Hipparchus did something few had ever attempted. He began to map the stars with mathematical precision. He recorded their positions, comparing them meticulously over years. He sought not just to admire them, but to understand them. As you imagine him now, sitting on a smooth rock with a simple instrument in hand, picture the patience required. He watches the same stars night after night, allowing their slight shifts to guide his thoughts. Through this quiet repetition, he begins to see something astonishing, tiny changes in star positions over long periods of time. From these observations, Hipparchus discovered what we now call precession, the slow wobble of Earth's rotational axis. This realization meant that the pattern of the sky changes subtly over centuries. Imagine the wonder of that discovery, recognizing that even the stars, which seem so eternal, drift in gentle arcs that only a lifetime of patient watching can reveal. Under the peaceful glow of the ancient sky, Hipparchus noted these shifts carefully, his mind weaving calculation and curiosity together into a new understanding of cosmic motion. Hipparchus did not stop there. He created the first known comprehensive star catalog, listing hundreds of stars with their coordinates and brightness levels. His work became the foundation for all future astronomical mapping. In those days, before printing presses or widespread literacy, such knowledge was fragile. Yet Hipparchus knew that if he recorded the stars with enough precision, future generations would carry his work forward. And they did. Centuries later, another scholar climbed onto rooftops and temple courtyards, gazing at the same stars with the same sense of wonder. This was Claudius Ptolemy, living in the ancient city of Alexandria, a bustling hub of trade, culture, and scholarship. Imagine Alexandria at night. Marble buildings glowing under moonlight, the library standing tall and serene, and the distant waves of the Mediterranean brushing gently against the harbor. In this environment of learning, Ptolemy gathered the works of earlier astronomers, including Hipparchus, and expanded them into something larger, something that would shape the next 1,000 years of scientific thinking. Ptolemy's most famous work, the Almagest, was not just a book. It was a grand attempt to synthesize everything known about the movement of the heavens. Imagine him writing by lamplight, his shadow dancing on the walls as he traced geometric figures on parchment. He built a model of the universe based on spheres and circles, a system that placed Earth at the center. Though we now know that this geocentric model was incorrect, it held extraordinary power for its time. It offered a way to predict the motions of planets and stars with remarkable accuracy, using only mathematics and careful observations. Ptolemy also refined the star catalog begun by Hipparchus, adding measurements and organizing constellations into a form that would endure for centuries. His work became the foundation for astronomical teaching across Europe, the Middle East, and beyond. For more than 1,000 years, when scholars looked to the skies seeking answers, they did so with Ptolemy's writings in hand. Imagine the peaceful discipline required of these early astronomers. Night after night, they watched the heavens with no expectation of immediate reward. The stars did not reveal their secrets quickly, but through persistence, patterns emerged, patterns that shaped calendars, guided sailors, and inspired philosophers. These men transformed stargazing from an act of wonder to a science grounded in observation. And though their tools were simple, their dedication was immense. Now imagine yourself lying under a quiet sky, very much like the ones Hipparchus and Ptolemy studied. The stars shift slowly across the darkness, their movement invisible from moment to moment, yet undeniable across the span of a night. You can understand how these ancient scholars felt, a blend of peace, curiosity, and humility. Their world moved more slowly, allowing thoughts to stretch across hours and ideas to grow steadily like vines seeking sunlight. The beauty of their legacy lies not only in accuracy or technical achievement, but in the gentle way they bridged myth and science. They did not reject the stories that cultures had passed down. Instead, they brought new clarity, showing that the stars could hold meaning while also following natural laws. Their work did not diminish the wonder of the night sky. It deepened it. They proved that understanding does not take away magic. It reveals new layers of it. As you breathe softly now, imagine the ancient astronomers watching over the same constellations that drift slowly above you. Their charts, scratched onto parchment or etched into clay, still echo in the modern maps we use today. Every time we identify Orion, locate Polaris, or track the arc of the Milky Way, we follow in their footsteps. Their legacy is not loud. It is quiet, steady, and patient, like the turning of the stars themselves. And in the gentle glow of this imagined night, you can feel the same calm that guided their work, a stillness that invites thought, a wonder that invites dreams, and a sky that invites you into its endless, soothing mystery. As the world steps slowly from myth into scientific understanding, the stars above remain unchanged, steady points of light glowing in the quiet dark. But humans began to realize something important. Different cultures had drawn different shapes in the sky. Sailors in the south named new constellations unfamiliar to the north. Ancient Greeks imagined heroes. Chinese astronomers saw celestial palaces. Polynesian navigators traced paths across open oceans. The sky was full of stories, but none of those stories matched each other. By the early 1900s, a new age of cooperation began. Scientists from around the world were communicating more easily, sharing notes, observations, and star maps. For astronomy to grow, they needed one consistent map of the heavens. The sky had become a patchwork of many traditions, and something gentle, organized, and unified was needed to help future generations understand it. In 1919, the International Astronomical Union formed, a group of astronomers from different nations who met quietly, thoughtfully, to bring harmony to the study of the stars. They didn't erase old stories. They simply created a shared scientific outline. After months of comparing ancient charts and modern observations, they agreed on 88 constellations, enough to cover the entire sky, north and south. Imagine them working under soft lamplight, spreading star charts across wooden tables, their voices low and calm. Their task was delicate, to respect the world's many interpretations while offering a common language for science. Now, when you look up at the night sky, those 88 constellations gently define the heavens. Yet beneath their borders, the old myths still breathe. The science gives structure, the stories give soul. And together, they shape the sky you see every night, organized, timeless, and still full of wonder. When you lie beneath a dark sky, it's easy to forget that each star is far more than a tiny dot of light. Yet understanding the science behind them doesn't remove the magic. It deepens it. Each star is a world of fire, a glowing sphere of gas burning across unimaginable distances. Some are young and bright. Others are old and fading, their light softening after millions of years of life. Take a star like Betelgeuse, resting in Orion's shoulder. In myth, it may be the heartbeat of a mighty hunter. In reality, it is a giant nearing the end of its journey, glowing softly with red warmth. Or consider the Pleiades, a cluster of stars often called the Seven Sisters. To the eye, they look like a small handful of sparkling dots. But in truth, they are hundreds of massive stars, drifting together through space in a beautiful cosmic family. Many stars are not alone. They move in pairs or groups, orbiting each other slowly, bound by invisible gravity. Some stars pulse, some flicker, some spin so quickly they send out beams of light like cosmic lighthouses. Imagine drifting quietly through space, seeing nebulae, clouds where stars are born, swirling like gentle fog lit from within. These clouds collapse slowly, forming new suns that will glow for billions of years. Eventually, even stars must rest. Some fade into white dwarfs, small and quiet. Others explode into supernovas, scattering elements that will someday form planets, oceans, and even life. The iron in your blood, the oxygen you breathe, the calcium in your bones, were all created in stars long ago. And so, when you look at the constellations, you are seeing both ancient stories and the very origins of life itself, a blend of myth and science glowing softly in the night. As the night sky stretches endlessly above you, imagine yourself drifting upward with a lightness that feels almost like floating. There is no effort in your movement, no strain, no sound, just a quiet upward lift, as though the stars themselves have welcomed you into their soft, glowing realm. The world below grows distant, fading into gentle blues and shadows. Up here, in this tranquil, boundless space, the constellations begin to glow with a warmth that feels alive, familiar, and comforting. You drift slowly, without urgency, passing through the soft darkness like a feather carried by a gentle breeze. The constellations around you shimmer with a low, peaceful pulse, as though breathing quietly alongside you. There is no cold, no fear, only a soothing stillness that wraps around you like a warm blanket. It feels as though you stepped into a dream woven from starlight, one where nothing exists but calm continuity and timeless wonder. Below you, Orion appears first, the hunter shape forming from soft, glowing stars. But here, in this dreamlike space, he is not fierce or imposing. He stands gently, peacefully, his shoulders relaxed, his belt a quiet line of light that guides the eye from one point to the next. His story, once filled with pride and struggle, now feels softened, like the distant memory of something long past and forgiven. You drift past him, feeling his familiar presence fade into a peaceful glow. A little farther, you sense Scorpius rising in the opposite direction, its curved tail shimmering in warm, ember-like hues. Yet even the scorpion seems changed here, its myth of vengeance softened into a quiet reminder that all things move in balance, never rushing, never competing. The stars that outline its shape glow like warm coals beneath a blanket of calm darkness. You drift between them, as though passing through gentle sparks, suspended in time. Soon, you find yourself near the great arc of Ursa Major, the Big Bear. The stars of the Big Dipper form a graceful pattern, steady and familiar. They are not distant here. They feel close, almost within reach. Above them, Ursa Minor circles patiently around its shining guide, Polaris. The North Star's calm, unwavering light seems to glow a little stronger as you drift closer. It feels like a beacon of home, of direction, of a steady heart beating in the quiet of the universe. The sky around you feels warmer as you approach Cassiopeia and Cepheus. Their royal shapes rest gently across the heavens, the queen's elegant W-shaped pattern, and the king's house-like outline forming a serene celestial tableau. You drift past them as though walking through a quiet palace of starlight. Their old tales of pride and humility fall away, replaced by a deep sense of balance that lingers softly in the air. Then, almost like a whisper, the constellations of Perseus and Andromeda come into view. Their forms shine with subtle tenderness, their myths of danger and rescue now carried on the breeze like gentle echoes. Pegasus rises beside them, his great square glowing like an open window to some deeper, quieter realm. His wings seem to stir faintly in the darkness, lifting your thoughts with the ease of a dream. You pass through the stars of his constellation, as though moving through strands of glowing silk. Farther along, Hercules appears, his shape a cluster of dim, patient stars. He does not stand as a warrior here, nor as a symbol of struggle. He simply rests, softened, peaceful, and suspended gently in the night. His presence is a reminder that even the greatest journeys eventually find stillness. Even the strongest hearts eventually rest. As you drift deeper into the sky, you notice other constellations emerging in soft waves, the Chinese guardians of the four directions, the Navajo patterns of harmony and balance, the celestial forms of Egypt, Greece, and countless others blending seamlessly into one vast, gentle tapestry. Their stories, once separate, now feel like threads woven into the same comforting fabric. The sky around you is no longer divided by culture or time. It is a single, unified blanket of soft light and slow movement. You drift back, higher and higher, until all the constellations you've met along this journey stretch below you like a glowing ocean. Each star flickers with a story you've heard, a myth you've walked through, a moment of wonder you've carried with you. And now, all those stories merge quietly into one peaceful impression, an impression of vastness, timelessness, and gentle meaning. The Milky Way arches across the darkness like a river of pale silver. Its light is soft and soothing, like the faint shimmer of moonlight reflected on still water. You feel yourself drifting along this cosmic river, carried effortlessly by its current. Every breath you take feels lighter, calmer, deeper. Each breath carries you farther into the tranquility of this moment. There is no past here, no future, no noise, only the present, quiet and infinite. The stars seem to glow with a slow heartbeat, and your own breathing falls into that same ancient rhythm. You and the sky are no longer separate. You are part of the same gentle tapestry, woven from the same quiet fabric. As you drift lower again, the constellations dim slightly, their glow settling into a peaceful hush. You feel yourself descending the way a leaf drifts toward still water. Softly, slowly, effortlessly, the world below begins to take shape again, but now it feels gentler, softer, more distant. The air grows warmer. The stars settle into their quiet positions above you. You land gently back into your resting place, wrapped once more in the familiar comfort of the night. But something feels different, lighter, calmer. The stories of the constellations linger in your mind like warm echoes, soothing you, reminding you that the sky above is always watching, always patient, always ready to guide you into peace. Your breath softens. Your thoughts grow quiet. The constellations above you settle into their eternal paths. And with their ancient light watching over you, the long journey through myth and starlight comes to a gentle, peaceful end.